Hello everyone, welcome to the reading of the newest KotLC bonus scene, this time through Lynn's perspective. This came from the new paperback version of Unlocked, and we will share it with you today. The premise is about what Lynn, Marella, Maruca, and Stina did during the plot of Unlocked, which Shannon has said it will add into the next book. Because we did buy this book solely to give you this story free of charge, it would mean a lot if you could subscribe and like this video. Let's get into it. Trust issues, Lynn. Is it me, or is your hair extra silvery today? Marella asked as she thrust her arms out and snapped her fingers to ignite long threads of searing red and blue flames, which she quickly wove into a floating purple fireball as big as her head. She nodded smugly at her creation, until it turned white hot and started to spin. And no matter what command Marella shouted, she couldn't stop the flames from untangling and lashing out towards her friends. Maruca shielded herself behind a force field. Stina dived behind a cluster of rocks, but Lynn didn't blink as the fire whipped closer. She just flicked her hand in a small arc, making a wave curl off the shore and drown the inferno in puffs of shimmering mist. "My mother gave me a set of hair combs yesterday," she told Marella, trailing her fingers through the strands framing her face, which were now silver from root to end. "She claimed she saw them and thought of me, but I know she'd be hoping I'd use them to pull my hair back and look normal from the front. So I melted down the combs and added some additional metal highlights." Maruca whistled as her dome of glowing energy blinked away. "Wow, my mom gave me side eyes for days after I added this." She pointed to the single blue dreadlock twisting among her other brown ones. "Did your parents freak out when they saw?" "Oh, I'm sure they're seething right now, but they pretended not to notice. They're good at avoiding confrontation." Lynn glanced over her shoulder at Chloromir's elaborate mansion, where her mother had surely locked herself in her studio, and was now furiously painting another portrait of her children with plain black hair. "Well, that's one thing you and your parents have in common," Stina called as she stood, dusting sand off her tunic. "Oh, please spare me the confused eyebrow scrunch. I'm an empath, remember? I've been picking up on all that bitter fury you've been trying to bury behind half smiles and dodged questions. Plus, you're hiding out at your parents' house, which we all know you hate, instead of going back to Soul Reef and smacking some sense into your brother." "She has a point," Marella admitted. "Come on, Lynn. We spent weeks plotting ways to get Tam away from the Neverseen, and now that he's back, you're pretending he doesn't exist. You won't even answer his hails," Maruca added. "Can we also talk about the doom and gloom following you around?" Stina asks, pointing at something above Lynn's head. Lynn felt her cheeks burn when she spotted the dark gray clouds casting in her shadow. She hadn't sensed the storm's presence, or realized she'd been the one gathering it. Did that mean her control was slipping, or that her power had grown once again? Maruca moved to Lynn's side and hooked an arm around her elbow. "It's okay to not be okay, but I think you need to start talking about it." "Not it, her," Marella corrected, smoothing a few of the tiny braids scattering through her blonde hair as she moved to Lynn's other side. "And don't act like you don't know we're talking about your brother's new black-cloaked BFF." The air shifted. Cold moisture pressed against Lynn's shoulders, covering her pale skin with goosebumps as the clouds pleaded for a downpour. "If you need to make it rain, I can shield us," Maruca offered, stretching out her fingers and making sparks of white energy dance across her dark skin. Lynn shook her head and gritted her teeth, sending a silent command to the clouds to dissipate, but the water fought back, coiling around her as pleas pulsed in her ears like a drumbeat. "Storm, storm, storm." "Brace yourself," Stina warned, clearly assuming they were going to need Maruca's force field. Lynn refused to let the water take over. She hadn't had mentors to guide her until recently, so most of her methods came from hard-won instincts. "Be calm," she told the storm. "Steady, gentle." The clouds softened with each word, but mist lingered in the air, a cold, sticky veil against Lynn's skin. "Time to scatter," she told the tiny droplets. "Be peaceful, quiet." The last command was also for herself. She'd choken back so many words over the last few days that her throat felt raw from the effort, but she wasn't about to acknowledge the traitor's existence. She didn't even want to think her name, because it wasn't a name, it was a persona, the Neverseen's way of staying anonymous as they carried out their evil deeds. Much like the black hoods that covered their faces, which the traitor was still hiding behind, even though it's been almost a week since she switched sides in Lone Moor. Yet she'd also made zero effort to hide the creepy white eye symbols stitched across her sleeve. "Whatever you're thinking right now, just say it," Maruca whispered as the clouds gathered again, darker and heavier than they'd been before. "And maybe try calming that," Stina added, pointing to a white-capped wave surging toward them. Lynn's eyes widened, then squeezed tight as Maruca shielded all four of them under a glaringly bright force field. "Stop!" Lynn shouted at the ocean. "Retreat!" The words sent the wave curling backwards, but it was too late to stop the frothy water from surging up to their stomachs. "Sorry, guys," Maruca mumbled as everyone gasped and tugged at their soaked tunics. "Water's a lot harder to block than I thought it would be." "I'm the one who should be apologizing," Lynn assured her, turning her face toward the sun. Her eyes rang and her head throbbed as the warmth tingled against her skin. But she used that energy to gather the water from everyone's hair and clothes and send it scattering. We're fine, Maruca promised, lowering the force field, but if you want to make it up to us, you can start by talking about Little Miss Neverseen, Marella added. I'll even go first. Raise your hand if you think it's super weird that we still don't even know Glimmer's real name. Lynn cringed at the title, and the ocean churned and frothed. Maybe we shouldn't pressure her, Maruca suggested, as Stina scrambled to higher ground, or at least wait until we're somewhere a little drier. Lynn wrapped her arms around herself, trying to match her breasts to the calmer, steadier currents hiding beneath the waves. Inhale, exhale. Ebb and flow. Just keep breathing. Slowly her pulse calmed and the tide receded. I'm fine, she promised her friends, and talking about this isn't going to change anything. My brother has decided to trust her. Even though Glimmer's the one who has made the bonds that turned him into what did Lady Giselle call him? Stina interrupted. Her little shade pet? Just keep breathing, Lynn reminded herself again as her gaze shifted to the horizon, where the water seemed to stretch and stretch. It helped her remember her place. A single drop in a vast sea of other voices. I'll admit, I don't understand my brother's decision, she murmured, but Tam's not the only one who just decided to trust her. Tyrgan's letting her stay at Soul Reef, and the Black Swan and the Councillor are clearly cooperating with her. Otherwise, we know who she is and what she looks like. That's why I'm bringing this up, Stina told her. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before Glimmer pretends to know something important about the Neverseen and makes a deal for her freedom. And, actually, that's already happened, Marella cut in. Thankfully, she didn't get her freedom, but something big went on yesterday. I'm still trying to get more details. Lynn chewed her lip, wishing she could insist that she would have heard about something like that if it were true, but sometimes her friends weren't the best at keeping her in the loop, or including her in their plans. Usually she didn't mind, but with the way things were with Tam, she was starting to feel the divide. So what I'm hearing, Stina said, resting her hands on her hips, is that it's up to us to prove that Glimmer's evil, before she can follow through on whatever she's planning. And how are we supposed to do that, Lynn asked, trying not to imagine what chaos the traitor could be preparing for. Easy, by proving that Glimmer is the one who helped Lady Giselle escape from Lonemore. Someone had to help, since Tam had bound her hands with shadows, and I'm pretty sure a flasher could take care of that. Lynn sighed. I already thought of that. Sophie told me she'd look into it, so it must be a dead end. Right, because Foster the Wonder Girl never misses anything, Stina countered, rolling her eyes. You can all save the Yay Sophie speeches, by the way. I know you're all on Team Moonlark, so... You're not, Marella interrupted? I'm on Team Let's Be Real, okay? Sure, Foster's done some fancy stuff, and she has a lot of abilities and whatever, but she fails just as much as she wins. Probably more, actually. I mean, how many times has she almost died now? And how many times have all of us almost died because of her plans? Plus, she's also not always the hero. You saved Atlantis that time, she poked Lynn in the arm. Not Sophie. Yeah, but I wouldn't have been able to if Sophie hadn't been enhancing me, Lynn reminded her. Stina shrugged. Like I said, she's done some fancy stuff. That doesn't change the fact that she's also made some pretty huge mistakes, many of which include trusting the wrong people, and she tends to lose focus when her little boyfriends are in danger. Truth, Marella agreed, which is definitely happening right now. Sophie's main focus is figuring out what Keith's mom did to him, which is fine. That's also important, but your brother's spending way too much time with one of those Neverseen right now, and someone needs to fix that. And I know you'd rather hide out here because you're mad at him, but you're the only person he's going to listen to about this. Maybe not, Lynn watched as the waves crashed, steady and strong. The water was always so sure of its next move. Oh, how she envied it. Tam seems different, she murmured, needing a breath before she could add the truth she'd been trying to hide from. His time with the Neverseen changed him. She understood why, plus that didn't make it any less terrifying. Plus, she missed her twin. Tam was the only person she'd always been able to count on, her voice of reason, her source of strength and comfort and calm. And now he'd chosen Glimmer over her. What other way had his loyalty shift? And what would happen the next time he had to choose a side? Can we at least talk to your bodyguards? Marella asked, dragging Lynn out of her drifting thoughts. Lynn frowned. Why would we? Because they were in Lonemore with us, Marella reminded her, and because they're dwarves. The only way Lady Gisela could have gotten out of the city is if some dwarves helped her, Stina clarified. So maybe your bodyguards saw something or heard something from their friends. If they did, they would have told me, Lynn argued. Would they? Maruca asked. I mean, it doesn't seem like you to talk to them much. I bet you don't even know their names, Marella added, and Lynn's face burned when she realized Marella was right. She'd only spoken with her bodyguards a couple of times despite how long they'd been protecting her. Well, they would have told someone, Lynn corrected, but as the words left her lips, she realized she wasn't sure. And this was the kind of detail they should definitely check. They should have checked days ago, but she could have dealt with that regret later. For now, Lynn raised her foot, trying to remember the precise stomping sequence she was supposed to use to call for them. Her bodyguards must have already been listening, because 3 thuds in, 2 furry, mole-like bodies popped out of the sand. The shorter dwarf said, as Lynn, Stina, Marella, and Maruca scrambled backward, and this is Timur. But there's no need to apologize for not knowing that, Ray added quickly. We keep to ourselves, it's easier to be objective about your protection that way. Plus, your world is far too bright, Timur rubbed his squinted eyes. I'm still sorry, Lynn felt the need to tell them, and I hope you know how grateful I am to have your protection. Both dwarves dipped a tiny bow. To answer your other question, Uri said, resting her paws on her forehead to shield her eyes from the sunlight, I wish we could confirm or deny your suspicions, but neither of us saw your enemy escape, and all the lingering deserters have been arrested and interrogated by our new queen. None of them have any new information. Couldn't they be lying or hiding something, Maruca wondered? Perhaps, Tamura admitted, but the reports matched our evidence. Your enemy left alone. We traced their escape path through an old corridor of soft, unsteady ground, and there was only one set of footprints, and one set of handprints from times when she must have stumbled. There were handprints, Marella verified, glancing at Lynn before she held up her arms with her wrists pressed together, as though they had been bound. Were those handprints close to each other like this? The dwarves slowly shook their heads. I cannot say for certain, Tamura said quietly, since we are more concerned with her footprints, but I felt like I remembered the palm prints side by side like this. He dropped to his hands and feet, keeping both shoulder width apart. See, Stina said, as Lynn, Marella, and Maruca each sucked in a breath. Someone must have cut her shadow bonds before she fled. There was only one person who could have done that. Lynn's mouth went dry. Her pulse thrummed as she glanced at the sky, where dark clouds were gathering over her head again, but this time she embraced them. A storm was coming. She wasn't sure how big or brutal it would be, but if they were going to weather it, she needed to talk to Tam immediately. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this short story. I will see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.